This week in e-commerce, episode 65. I am Mal Chia, and with me is Paul Waddy. Paul, Black Friday week. How you feeling?
Hey, good. Got to do a bit of shopping, actually. Ready to do some consuming. Big week. Big
Yep.
week.
Have you bought anything yet?
A few things. Amazon, as you know.
Mhm.
So what did I buy? Yeah, I bought some like Christmas lights for the kids. I got a Cove and Co bag for Avonda, which is really cool, by the way.
Does she know about that yet? Because
Yeah,
hopefully, if she listens to the podcast, you just told her what you got it for Christmas.
yeah. No, she's already wearing the hat. Came with a cool hat, actually. Shout out to Crystal. What else? I've got something coming today. You know when like you lose track of what's coming? Oh, I bought a bike helmet again off Amazon for the kids. They can
Mm.
decorate it with their own stickers. But I can see JB Hi-Fi luring with some advertising here. Yeah, have you got your eye on anyone? Are you hanging out for anyone?
Look, we talked about a new dishwasher, so we've picked one out
Oh yeah,
from Appliances Online. Their Black Friday sale has started, so I believe today we're gonna buy it, and very conveniently, we dropped the Dyson, like our 10-year-old Dyson. So that's it's like, okay, Amazon, they've got like the V11 for like $600 marked down
yeah.
for like 1,200. So I was like, yeah, okay, we'll get that too. So
You can have mine. I've got one. I've had one here and still in the shipping wrapping for the last 12 months. So we got sucked in probably last cyber to buying a
yeah,
Dyson.
you still haven't unwrapped it. That's impressive. That's impressive. I'm big on just like as soon as something arrives, like I unwrap it, it goes straight into use.
I do usually as well, but Ramonda likes to just keep things packed away for a year.
Yeah. Yeah, but in addition to that, got a lot of Christmas shopping. So I had the Acacia sale. They kicked off yesterday. Some great deals there. So bought a lot of sleepwear. So my family are getting nothing but sleepwear for Christmas. But no, it's been good. But I think there's it's all ramping up right now. So it's actually felt a little bit slower this year. I thought more people would have started early, but it actually feels more people have
Yeah,
delayed it.
I reckon you're right. Like I have been looking for some sneakers, just see who like some Nikes, Air Jordans or whatever. And I was looking last week and I was like, this doesn't feel like there's a lot of
Mm.
offers. Ironic, like JD Sports, where I usually go. Ironically, like the best deal that I was looking for some Air Max was on the Nike website. And I was like, this doesn't feel right. Having said that, I do see Foot Locker Black Friday up to 50% off, so I'll have to check that one out. But yeah, I agree. It didn't kind of hit as hard. I'm thinking like it's obviously going to all kick off this week, and Friday should be huge.
Mm.
But yeah, I agree. It was a little bit of a soft
Yeah, I
consumer.
wonder whether it's because it was so late this year that everyone kind of realized that, hang on, it's on the 29th. It's like we can't
Mm,
be on sale all month. Like obviously some people have been on sale all month, but you're getting the vibes that people are just like, actually we can't. We just run so hard over that period that we're going to burn out if we're on sale the whole month.
yeah. Um, could be. Yeah, it's definitely felt a bit weird to me, and I think I sort of think consumers are really holding off as well a little bit
Mhm.
to seeing what's happened on the Friday, and I think there's just going to be some really big deals on the Friday. Just of interest, while I'm talking to you, googling to see who's on sale, and Nike's 25% off site wide. So
I did see that yesterday. So it's like, oh, do I need any more Nikes? No, but
doesn't matter.
yes,
Just
I do.
buy them.
Yeah. More AJ1s.
Yeah,
How many more can I fit
that's
into
exactly
to
what
my
I'm
cupboard?
looking at.
Yeah. All right. Well, it has been a very busy week. Just overall in general, it just seems like every day it just seems to be ramping up. Not just sales stuff, because we're not going to be really talking about too much sales stuff today. But just want to make mention first of all of Labor recently unveiled their proposed social media ban for ages 16 and under. Not really specific to retail and e-commerce, but I look at this and in line with like their misinformation bill, which they've now shelved. I can't see this happening. It has absolutely no meat on it whatsoever, and has really no plan. It's basically just okay, social media platforms, and they're taking aim at Facebook, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. You guys need to figure it out. And it's just like, hang on, like if you're going to introduce a policy or a bill, like you need to actually have some detail about this. They're just kicking the can to someone else but them. to actually make this to make these changes.
Yeah, it doesn't really seem too well thought out in terms of the detail. Anyway, in principle, it sounds fine. Like, yep, 16-year-old, you got to be over 16 to use social media. But I think we've talked about this before.
Mm.
It's just like, yeah, so okay, go away and make that happen, platforms. And if you don't, you could get a $50 million fine.
Yeah.
Anyway, it says the bill itself is intentionally vague on how it should
Yeah.
be achieved. It doesn't dictate conveniently how platforms must comply, but it is expected that they'll comply. So yeah, I don't know. It's just kind of weird. It's weird, right? Because kids are going to find a way to use social media.
Yep.
So who's at fault there? When when they find a way, who is at fault? And it's really interesting because are you breaking the law by being 14 and going on Instagram? And then are you liable personally, or is Facebook or Meta liable for letting you on the platform? So it's going to be a little bit weird. I saw Elon Musk wasn't a fan, but
He's not a fan of anything.
yeah, that's surprise, surprise. But in principle, I'm okay with it. Like I get it, but it just doesn't seem that well thought out. Like just there's no detail. That's really weird.
Like there's no parent alive who would say that social media is a net benefit for their kids. I think we can all look at our children and go, as a parent of two teenagers, like I can see that social media has really affected their behavior. I know a lot of other kids who are around that age bracket as well, and can see how much time they spend on social media. But it's a really ham-fisted policy to just say, well, we don't know how it's going to happen, but you guys just need to do it. Otherwise, we're going to fine you. It's like, okay, does it exist on the platform side? Does it exist on the operating system side? And that's the other argument they're having. Like, if it exists on the platform side, well, how do you have that? How do you verify it? And they're pushing it to operating systems, and operating systems are just like, well, it's not really our problem either. But in either case, you're going to need some form of like digital ID. To be able to validate that person is who it is. And that's going to come with a lot of risks around how much information are you then giving up to the government. You obviously have your MyGov account, which every Australian over 18 years old has, and has a MyGov number and whatever else. But do you really want to be using that to log into Facebook? So MyGov knows and links that to your Medicare record, that this is what you're doing, and your Centrelink is linked to like how often you're spending time on Facebook. It's like I think that just becomes a huge slippery slope when you start talking about digital IDs. We sound like China at that point.
Yeah, I think there's a lot of people that won't want to do that, and rightly so. Yeah, I think it's like when you're buying alcohol online, you sort of get around that, I guess, by having to show your ID at the point of delivery. But there's a reason, I guess, that they don't want to make you sign in to buy alcohol, because it's incredibly intrusive. So I just don't know how it'll work. The government has advised that tell parents that to threaten your kids and say it's illegal to be on social media. Like, yeah, like,
that works. That works when you tell kids that.
It's the same with me saying you're going to be grounded. Like, they don't give it.
Yeah.
Like, they need to be marched off to jail for. So, like, I just don't know how it'll work. I think the intentions are okay, but I just don't know whose responsibility it will be. Operating system, platform, parent, bit of everybody. It sounds like. Will there be some sort of sign-in? Well, there will have to be some form of ID provided, and I don't know about that either. Like, it's I don't know if it's going to be like MyGov and so on. That's too risky for me, sharing that sort of data. Is it going to be, just submit your, same as when you do gambling, you don't just scan your license? I don't know. I really don't know. But it seems like a bit of a broad brushstroke so far.
Yep. And speaking of China, Shein, according to SEMrush, are now the most second trafficked apparel and fashion website in Australia. Second to Maya, which is just like, I don't really consider Maya just apparel and fashion, but okay. I think Maya's a whole lot than that. And if you take that into account, that means Shein is Australia's #1 apparel and fashion site, which has moved ahead of the Iconic, which is just crazy to me. And the rate which they've grown, and now it's like they're the number one online destination for fashion in Australia. It's wild that they've grown that quickly, and it just shows the appetite which we have for just really cheap fashion.
I don't know what to think of this. I hate it, in short. But I mean, it kind of just puts to bed what we've been talking about for the last year or so, which is just that these guys are here. They're coming. They're not coming. They're here. We've
Mm.
reported previously on this podcast that Temu's the fifth biggest online retailer. Shein's now basically the biggest fashion. I don't count Maya as fashion. You would say the Iconic is the number one, and then these guys have gone past, well past the Iconic. Although interestingly, really low bounce rate on the Iconic compared to Shein. So well done there. But I don't know. It just opens up that question again. Like, what will we do about this? Because yeah, they're paying GST, whatever, but they're not paying tax, really. They're not really contributing much to the Australian workforce. They're not really contributing much to anything here. They're taking away from Australian retailers and Australian jobs. Therefore, we know what the US is doing with regards to tariffs. Australia only wound back tariffs in the free trade agreement a decade ago. So I don't know. Can you do a Shein tax? We've spoken about Europe where they're cracking down, sort of coming at them for cracking down on ethical supply chain. I just think that's too slow. I don't know. I don't know. Like, we're just getting swamped. And there'll be another one in 5 years, Mal. There'll be some other kind of Chinese one popping up. So this is a little bit worrying. It's not cool, this one.
Yeah, I think the only way is what they're doing in Europe with the fast fashion tax, in France, I should say more specifically. But the appetite which we just have for fast fashion, particularly in the cost of living crisis, and even think outside of a cost of living crisis, the ability to just change your outfit every couple of days or every couple of weeks is just something which young people find incredibly attractive. And Paul, I'm not sure if you if you noticed, if you saw the new documentary on Netflix which came out last week, conveniently timed for peak season. Buy Now: The Shopping Conspiracy.
No, I saw it advertised. I haven't watched it yet.
Yeah, they had a big focus on Shein in that one, and just talking about fast fashion, and just how that has changed over the years, and just the appetite which we have now for that, and we just now think of fashion as something which is totally disposable and commoditized, and it does just change the game. Like we have the carrot, which we've tried for years and years and years to get people to change their behavior, to buy more sustainably, to buy less polyester and these oil byproducts. But that hasn't really worked. Like, we can't incentivize people emotionally to do the right thing, because ultimately doing the right thing versus getting a bargain, I think we'd all prefer to get a bargain than necessarily do the right thing. And now they're looking at the stick approach with taxes, and the incoming, like, circular economy mandates which we need to follow. So all these things are the stick approach, but that's all happening far too slow.
Yeah, I agree. It's happening way too slow. I think I'm looking at Shein's website now, and there's a hairspray thing that the barbers use, like not motorized, highly pressured, and it's $1.16.
Yeah.
And I remember, by the time you get to the checkout, it's $5.06. And I remember Jing from eShopping Group saying that her contacts in China in the factories and stuff are happy to make 10 cents. They're happy to make 10 cents an order. And obviously we just can't compete with that. And I don't know, it's kind of, it's depressing really, because we know that it's killing Aussie businesses, not just Australian, but, around the world, US as well. Again, the what they're doing in France is cool. Like, it's a good step, but again, it's a slow step. I think you've just got to, unfortunately, take the Trump route here. Well, not Trump, because it had support from all, but to impose a tax. And we did that again a few years ago in 2016-17 by saying, well, we've lowered the GST threshold to 0, but it's just not enough. Like, okay, these guys will pay 10% on GST. They'll get huge shipping discounts because of their volume that'll probably offset that. It's still unreachable for Australian retailers to compete with that. So I think, like, I haven't really heard government talking about it as such, but you could be sure if, like, some big monster supermarket rolled in from China or whatever and started undercutting Coles and Woolies, and Aldi tried that, but like, but I'm talking like really started slashing by 50%. You could be sure that there would be big news. There would be things happening about it. But I feel like it's just snuck online and people have just gone, oh, well, I don't even know that the government fully is interested in e-commerce all the time. They didn't know what was going on in COVID, really. So I think this has just kind of snuck through the back door here, and we are now just like the biggest online retailers in Australia aren't Australian, and that's pretty sad.
Yeah, and they don't. Besides, they don't really contribute a whole lot to the Australian economy. And that's a real concern. And I worry about this from the sense that retail is a really appealing job for employment path for young people. Like young people, typically, I got started in retail. A lot of people I know got started in retail. It's a great path into the workforce. But now that's going to start to disappear if we continue to support, well, if these international players such as Shein and Temu keep taking more and more of the local market share. Those opportunities aren't going to be there either in a bricks and mortar retail store or even in e-commerce.
That's a valid point. That's a valid point. They're not just taking from online; they're taking from brick and mortar, who employ Christmas casuals and so on since we've been 14 years old. So, and e-commerce is going to continue to grow over the next decade. So that already puts physical retail under more strain. And if a large portion of that e-commerce is going offshore, then that's just no good for anyone. So I think they've got to act pretty soon on this.
Yep, agreed. Okay, we are now going to take a bit of a, not in that exact same vein, Creditor Watch recently announced their forecast, which has shown that business closures are at the highest rate since the pandemic. And scarily enough, they're also tipping that consumer-facing businesses could have a failure rate of up to 9%, which is, again, just kind of this whole snowball effect of everything which we're talking about, with all the headwinds which are currently faced, which the industry is currently facing.
This is not really surprising, is it? And I think it's the question that we probably get a lot is, how is it out there? How are other brands doing? And like this just proves that the opening line is businesses are closing down at the fastest rate since the height of the global COVID pandemic. Yep, I mean this is what we know is already happening, and this is kind of what we've been talking about for at least a year, which is like, hey guys, just hunker down here and focus on efficiency, focus on spending less money. Don't worry too much about revenue. Cut that cost base because your revenue may well come down. And this is sad. Like it's terrible. That's an incredibly high failure rate, and it needs to be a wake-up call, if you haven't already had it, a wake-up call to people listening to this who might be in business, who might be just holding on, or might be just profitable in November, or might be just banking on November and December and then back into unprofitable territory in January, February. You know what's going to happen if you do that. Like, it's happening. And if you're propping your business up through borrowing and stuff like that, it could all fall down. And this just confirms what we've talked about a lot. Like, it's tough out there, Mal, really tough.
Yeah, and look, that's a really good point that, you may have a really successful November, December, but rather than just barreling into next year with the exact same strategy, you really need to think about what you want your business to be. And this is a conversation which I've, unfortunately have had over the last, several months, talking to people about, well, your business actually needs to downsize because you cannot keep sustaining it at the current rate. Just looking at where all the headwinds are, the fact that you've become more reliant on discount and sales, new customer acquisition costs are increasing, your operating costs are increasing as well. When you look at that, well, you need to slim down. You can't keep continuing it. Because if you do, you are going to go out of business. So ultimately, what is the best outcome? The best outcome isn't just continuing to chase the same result or the same revenue number, but actually downsizing deliberately to have a healthier business. And I think that's a tough conversation to have. And I think that's a tough thing for a lot of retailers to have to look at, to go like, have I actually, because it's a blow to their ego to actually want to deliberately wind your business back a little bit. But it's actually sometimes the right thing to do. to actually maintain a healthy, sustainable business rather than something which is going to struggle along for the next 12 months. Because God, I don't want to struggle along in that position. Like, you don't want to be in that position for like 12, 24, 36 months and just keep limping along. Otherwise you end up like a Mosaic Brands who just came out that they owe $249 million.
Yeah, that's hectic, and you're right. It's an ego thing a lot of the time, and I think people. I was thinking about this over the weekend. I was going to post it on my daily thought, and I forgot. But it was like, why the benchmark that a lot of businesses seem to have is like we benchmark our success by the number of staff we have, and it's like, well, that's kind of weird at this moment. You sort of want to benchmark by how few staff you have or how efficient you are. And I agree. It's you see it so many times, businesses who just have to pull back a little bit, right size, and then go again. It doesn't mean you're finished growing your revenue forever, but just pulling back. And it's that kind of thing. I reckon I said it twice last week to brands. You just do what, administrators have the easiest job in the world because they do what founders don't want to do. And you just got to get in there and do it. Like, turn the business around, drop the costs. That's so much easier than finding revenue that's just not there. And I was sort of like looking at these tax cuts, which just aren't going to do anything. Like 3% tax cut on certain thresholds. Like, most of these businesses are behind on their tax anyway, Mal. Like, I've got to be honest, a lot of these businesses have been crushed by ATO payment plans anyway. And whilst we appreciate the 3% tax reduction, we don't appreciate the 11% that the ATO charge on late payments and penalties, nor the fact that oftentimes they won't refund those. But here's a 3% here's a 3% tax cut. We know you're a year behind on your tax. Here's a 3%, and it's a drop in the ocean. Interest rates are the problem, and we know that. And until they start coming down, I just don't see anything changing.
And it's funny, like you were talking before about like benchmarking against like how many staff do you have in tech. One of the metrics you always look at is how much revenue is generated per staff member. So whether that's something which in retail, which you'd be looking at as well, like we have 40 staff, but we have 40 staff generating $1 million. That way, each staff member is generating 25,000. That doesn't make any sense. If you had $25,000 per staff member, you'd be out of business already.
I like where you're going with it. Yeah, I mean, obviously in our agency, that's how we do things, and it forces you to look at it. And it makes sense. Like, it's your second biggest cost in e-com behind on your P&L behind marketing usually. So, or sometimes more than marketing. So it absolutely makes sure that it's scrutinized. For sure.
Yep. All right. Now we are going to finish off with one story. We're going to talk about Jaguar a little bit. Paul, were you aware of all the Jaguar noise last week? Did you see all the headlines?
Yeah. You know what's interesting? I'm disgusted by it. But I was flicking through the news or whatever, and I saw such and such has rebranded, and I didn't see that it was Jaguar. And the first logo that I saw, I had a quick look at it. And it was this square thing that looked like something out of the Matrix. And I was like, yeah, that's cool. Whatever. It's another, electric vehicle or whatever. I had no idea that it was Jaguar. And then I went back and read after all this kerfuffle. And I was like, no, you can't do that. You can't do that. And Jaguar is my favorite car. I grew up with, and I'll tell you why it's my favorite car. I grew up with them through my grandfather. It was an iconic thing. He had the XJ40 and the Daimler, and we called them by their name, and it was like a real special thing to have you don't have them anymore, but the Jaguar at the point of the car. And that was the whole thing. It was the identity, and their new advertisement, which is on theguardian.com, is just like,
it's horrible.
It's so out of touch, surely. Like, I don't mean to be rude, but Jaguar is we copped it when they moved out of England and went to India. They still made good vehicles, in my opinion, and that's fine. They kept that strong identity, that sort of English identity, I guess. And it's always been a bit of prestige. And then they've done this photo shoot, which, guys, just jump on theguardian.com and have a look. And it looks like they've got every element of diversity they possibly thought of, right? Everything. I think there's everything in there, and they've just gone, and they've just this is in, and it says copy nothing, and they've copied everything. They've just copied from everyone, jammed it together, and there's every mixture of people you can see in there, which is just standing for. It's like, yeah, we're so inclusive that we just don't stand for anyone.
Not even
And
cars.
there's not even a vehicle.
There's no car. There's no car in the ad.
I just couldn't believe I could do this logo in Canva as well.
I'm pretty sure it's just a font. It's probably just the typeface in Canva. But it loses just the entire heritage. Like everything you just talked about what you loved about Jaguar, the history, the heritage, it just throws it out the window. It's like you divest any sort of brand equity which you previously had. And look, and I don't know whether the fact that we're talking about it now means that it's actually a genius move. But every time this happens, and you can see it with like some of the other brands like YSL, like Yves Saint Laurent, when they did their rebranding about 10 or so years ago, that led to the brand like plummeting over the next decade. And now they've actually rebranded back to it, where they dropped the Ives part, and now they've actually brought the Yves Saint Laurent with their heritage logo back, because they've realized that, oh well, now we look like everyone else. We kind of stand for nothing. When Jaguar have done exactly that, they've kind of got rid of the heritage. There's no actual even Jaguar in it as well, not even a car, where they've just gone, no, forget about it. Everything which we're known for, we're now for everyone. We're now inclusive. Oh, by the way, the first car we're going to release is going to be $100,000 plus. Yeah, so it's like, well, hang on, like, what are you trying to be? Are you trying to appeal to that really affluent, upper end of the market? With this ad, it's like I don't know. I don't know what they're trying to be. It's this is the sort of ad which you would see in like a mockumentary, which they would make. I feel
exactly. That's exactly what it looks like. The gentleman with the bald head just staring through my soul. With he looks like he's out of Star Trek. This looks like it's out of Star Trek. It's hopeless. And that's right. Like, cool, do an electric vehicle. In fact, they already were doing electric vehicles. But it's just like, don't lose why people loved you to begin with. And I'm just super disappointed.
Yep. Look, I think like if you talk about how do you stand out in a Shein world, it's through your brand. It's by having a brand which stands for something which is distinct, and recognizable. And I think Jaguar have just done the opposite and just moved into just the most generic territory you could possibly imagine.
Yep. Bring back the old logo.
All right, well, we'll see what they do in the next couple of years. All right, Paul, that's all we've got time for this week.
Okay, mate. Well, good luck to everybody in Cyber Week this week. Hope you all smash it.
Yep, and we'll recap how everything's gone when we're back with you next week on This Week in E-Commerce.
Absolutely. See you then.